Hey team, I'm making this post here in reference to Thomas Carlyle's book, Past and Present. And I think this is a wonderful text to kind of give us a sense of the Victorian period at large. Carlyle is one of the sages of the Victorian period, in that he's looked upon both then and now as a representative of the period in terms of his ability to articulate the positives and the negatives of the culture of the society during that time. And here in our excerpts from Past and Present, we see not a whole lot of light uh, in Carlyle's assessment of the time that he lives in. He's very critical, and there's a kind of macabre essence to the observations that he forces us to see. He uses some very visceral imagery that makes you want to weep in some ways for what he's seeing and the points that he's trying to make. I'd like to focus my discussion board post today on the idea of inanition. Carlyle begins the excerpt that we're reading here by saying that England is dying of inanition. And for me, this kind of set a tone for the entire piece, where I was scavenging for references that Carlyle was making to the starved body, to sustenance. He's really saying that England is starving. It's almost anorexic in a way, right? And that there's a lack of sustenance, that we're not being full of the things that we should. And he's very critical of that. It actually made me start to think about Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, where he is, because I recently reread that, and I was thinking about some of the connections between how Carlyle is using the idea of sustenance and inanition and starvation as a way to catalyze change, and also how Swift is doing that much earlier than Carlyle, and that Swift is taking a kind of satirical approach, and Carlyle is absolutely not satirical, right? There's no satire for Carlyle. So he's very serious. So one thing that I would be interested to learn more about, and one thing that I'm going to track throughout the rest of our readings, is how we see food, sustenance, starvation, inanition, anorexia, the starved body functioning not only in this text, but as a thread that we could carry through our other texts that are on the table for our course. So is this something that many authors piggyback on? Is it a theme that we can pull out, a context in Victorian discourse? That's something that we could keep our eye on, and I would love to hear your thoughts. There is one thing, though, that I want to talk about here and now in this discussion forum, and that is a quote that almost brought me to my knees. So many of Carlyle's quotes do that to me, right? He's relentless in a lot of ways. He is impassioned. He has this fire to catalyze change and to bring about an awareness of the situations of inequality. And I have to say that Carlyle's far from perfect in my estimation, but I love reading him, right? Because he just invokes a sympathetic response that I can almost taste in my mouth. So I love to read him. But there's this one quote that he offers us in our reading for today, and I want to read it to you and problematize it a little bit, because I think it is very problematic. There are many problematic passages, but this is one that I wanted to hone in on right now. He says, "And yet, I will venture to believe that in no time since the beginnings of society was the lot of those same dumb millions of toilers so entirely unbearable as it is even in the days now passing over us." Is he an advocate of those dumb millions? Is he making a valid point when he says that never in the history of mankind, in the history of society, has there ever been such a disequilibrium? Has there ever been so much um, unbearable kind of situations as there is in the Victorian period? Or do we see this as a bit of a hyperbole? Is it dangerous to make this kind of assumption? Is Carlyle getting carried away here by putting the Victorian period and his experiences up on a pedestal over the rest of humanity? Or do we feel like his association of Victorians to slaves has a relevancy, has something that is unique about it? I would love to hear your opinions about it because Carlyle certainly thinks that there is something unique. But I can't help to read into some of the knowledge, the language that he uses as tough. What is he looking to accomplish when he makes observations like that? Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Thanks, guys.